Metro Police arrested Pawn Stars Corey Harrison early Friday morning on suspicion of driving while drunk. A police report obtained by 8 News Now says Harrison was swerving while driving a truck near Maine in Charleston. Rick Harrison's life has just become a nightmare. His son Adam is gone forever, and his close friend Chumlee is in jail. The pawn shop he built with his dad is now falling apart because of family fights, money problems, and shocking betrayals. How did things get this bad, and who can Rick turn to for help? Legend Pawn Stars was never just another reality show, it was built on hard work, deals, and a little luck. Rick and his father Richard turned a simple pawn shop into a gold mine, both literally and figuratively. They knew people loved history and gave them what they wanted, rare items, great stories, and a cast of characters who felt like family. But what happens when that family turns against each other? Richard's family is in trouble. Rick had to run the business by himself after his wife died in 2018. He did his best, but trouble was already brewing, ready to strike at the worst time. Before we go any further, you should know that the next betrayal is worse than anything Rick has ever experienced, and it comes from within his own family. Vegas is a terrible place to run a business. The glitz and glamour hide a reality of low profits, angry customers, and constant headaches. Rick had figured out the. Seeing the old man so excited makes it so much better, because when we get the car back from Wally and it's fully restored, he'll be so happy. Make the shop more than just a place to buy and sell things, make it a piece of history. This worked for a while, but then the TV show came out in 2009 and everything changed. People loved watching Rick, his son Corey, and their friend Chumlee bargain for pirate swords and rare coins, but fame is a fickle thing. It was a double-edged sword for the Pawn Stars crew, and by 2022, the cracks were too obvious to ignore. Rick's mother Joanne sued him, saying he tricked her into giving up her share of the business while she was still recovering from AOMA. The lawsuit demanded a full accounting of over $500,000 and even tried to stop Rick from selling assets. If that wasn't bad enough, the pandemic hit their business like a sledgehammer. They used to make millions of dollars a year, but this year they only made $37,000. A year later, what had once been a thriving empire had turned into a financial black hole. On screen, Chumlee was the lovable goofball, always getting into trouble but never too much to handle. Sometimes at work I need a little motivation, so I've got the human skull in Tonya Harding's picture of your mother would have been fine. Off-screen, things were much worse. In 2016, his house was raided as part of a criminal investigation. Unfortunately, the most serious charges against him did not stick. He was charged with multiple felonies for having illegal drugs and guns. He avoided jail time by taking a plea deal, but his reputation was ruined, fans were shocked, and the show took a huge hit. But Rick's problems were far from over. Just when it looked like the storm had passed, another one hit, this time it was his son Adam. Rumors spread for months, and then the unthinkable happened. Adam was sentenced to life in prison. The details were fuzzy, but the damage to the Harrison name was done. It was now clear that their business success was linked to scandal. The show that made them rich and famous was now a reminder of how quickly things could go wrong, and Rick couldn't escape what was happening around him. The Pawn Stars brand was built on trust that the deals were fair, the history was real, and the people running the shop were honest. But fans saw that trust slip away as the shop became less about rare treasures and more about lawsuits and criminal charges every scandal. Rick and his father had built what seemed like an unbreakable dynasty, but every new revelation made things worse. Rick had spent his whole life fighting to keep the business alive, but now he seemed to be losing control. He was dealing with legal battles from his own family, the fallout from Chumlee's arrest, and the harsh reality that his son might never see freedom again. No matter how hard he tried to keep things running smoothly, the shop was falling apart. Every deal felt like a last-ditch effort to keep the lights on. But here's the real question, can Pawn Stars make it through this? Rick has always been a fighter, but even the toughest deals end in the end. The weight of lawsuits, betrayals, and personal tragedies is too much for most people to handle, and with every new headline, it's harder to believe that the show or the business will ever be the same again. Just when Rick thought things couldn't get worse, Corey stepped in. Experts caught Corey lying about Pawn Stars. He couldn't stay out of trouble, he made bad decisions all the time, and his name kept showing up in the wrong places. In 2020, he decided to take a trip to the desert and rented a fancy RV. To his surprise, he wrecked it instead of fixing it. He allegedly left it a complete disaster, with trash and bottles rolling around like it was some kind of wild party bus. The owner was furious, saying he wouldn't pay a dime for the damage. Another day, another embarrassing situation for the Harrison family, but it wasn't just Corey. The so-called experts the show hired to give it credibility also had their share of scandals. For example, Johnny Jimenez Jr., a toy expert, was charged with domestic violence, and Drew Max, a sports memorabilia expert, was caught authenticating fake collectibles. Imagine thinking you just found a rare piece of history, only to find out you were ripped off. Lawsuits started to pile up, and the show's credibility was shot. Fans started to notice that something wasn't right with Pawn Stars. It used to be full of random and interesting deals, but now it seemed like every scene was planned and every negotiation was practiced. The magic was gone. Rick could see the writing on the wall. He tried to expand beyond the shop with Pawn Plaza, a shopping center he hoped would be a hit, but it wasn't. Business owners blamed him for not advertising it properly, and lawsuits followed, and the whole plan went down in flames. Even the show's biggest fans had to admit that it wasn't what it used to be. Rick's once mighty empire was falling apart one mistake at a time, but he wasn't going to let it happen. He started looking for new investments, real estate, other businesses, anything that could help him keep his wealth. The pawn shop had seen big wins, bad losses, and deals that made history, but nothing could have prepared them for the next customer who walked in. He was grinning like he had the biggest find of the century in his hands, a £10 British. Take note, but this wasn't just any bill, Banky the Famous had changed it. Street artist, it's great to have someone else tell me how much it's worth, but I'm worried that it might be fake. It's already a fake, so anyone can copy it and make it look like the original. The seller thought he was sitting on a gold mine, the old man took one look and thought it was just stolen money. The man wouldn't let it go, saying that Banksy's work was worth thousands of dollars. An expert came in and confirmed it was real, but there was a catch, it wasn't very rare. The seller wanted $500, but the old man wasn't interested. After a tough negotiation, the guy left with $400, not exactly a jackpot, but at least he wasn't empty-handed. Next, a Navy veteran came in with a Sexton that had been used on the U.S. ship Hector, which was a World War II repair ship. The old man loved military history. There is some agreement, but let's be honest, no one is using a cent to find their way. The seller of big dreams was asking almost $400 for it. As always, smart new collectors were out there, but they weren't exactly lining up to throw money at it. He hit the seller with a lowball offer of $200. The seller tried to fight back, but it was hard to do so against an experienced pawn expert. Eventually, they settled at $265, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't the big payday the seller had hoped for. Then, out of the blue, an old black and white panoramic photo of a World War II airfield in Las Vegas. The seller walked in sure it was worth at least $500. The old man barely blinked. Cool piece, sure valuable, not so much. He pointed out that history buffs might like it, but it's not exactly something that will fly off the shelves. The seller countered with $400, but the old man refused to budge. The seller was shocked and tried to raise the price, but the old man wouldn't budge. In the end, the guy left with his photo still in his hand. Though there had been scandals and bad decisions, one big deal was about to remind Rick why he opened this shop in the first place. That's how it worked in the shop, people came in thinking they had struck gold, only to leave with a harsh dose of reality. Some deals were great, others didn't work out, but every once in a while, something truly rare would walk through the door. The problem was that these rare moments were happening less and less. The show had become a slow-motion disaster with family betrayals, legal messes, and business failures overshadowing what made it great in the first place. In the world of pawning, nothing gets an old collector's heart racing like a piece of history, especially a firearm from the Civil War. Enter the Savage Navy revolver, a heavy, strange-looking piece of metal that once tried to be a game-changer in battle. The seller walks in grinning, knowing he has something rare, and offers almost $2,000 for it. He doesn't even blink. He calls in an expert, who tells him that while it is real and historically significant, it wasn't exactly a favorite back in the day. It was awkward, impractical, and not what soldiers wanted. Collectors love strange old weapons, but even they have their limits. This one is worth maybe $2,000 at most. The seller, hoping for a jackpot, stays firm, but the old man is here to win, not give away free money. His counter-offer of $800 is so low that the seller almost chokes. They argue about his history. The old man finally gets it for $1,400. The seller leaves with some cash, but let's be honest, he wanted more. The old man walks away happy that he got a good deal. Next up is a piece of baseball history, or at least that's what the seller says it is, a signed baseball that is said to have the signatures of Yankee greats from the 1950s, like Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. The problem is that the ball looks like it was dragged through a sandstorm, the ink is faded and the paper is torn. There is no proof that it is real, and to make matters worse, the old man has seen this before. The condition of the ball is fair to good, the signatures have faded but can still be read, and I would be suspicious of any other ball that was in mint condition. He brings in an expert who confirms that it is real but not in great shape. The seller hopes to make $3,000, but reality hits hard when the old man offers $800 instead. He won't give up, hoping for more, but hope doesn't pay the bills, so he walks away with the ball still in his hand, probably wishing he had taken the money when he had the chance. Just as things were starting to calm down, a Ghostbuster fan named Waltz walks in carrying a homemade proton pack that looks like it could actually catch ghosts. It has lights, buttons, sound effects, and everything else. The guy is beaming with pride, sure he's made something special, and he has a number in mind, $2,000. The old man doesn't even move. Nerdy stuff does sell, but only to the right person, and if someone really wanted this, they probably already had their own. The old man makes a firm offer of $1,000. The seller hesitates, thinking about his options. In the end, he takes it, knowing that he probably spent more on it, but hey, he's got money for his next wild project. Next up is a 6-foot wooden Indian statue. It's definitely an eye-catcher, and the seller is feeling. The seller says that the statue used to stand outside his grandfather's tobacco shop, but nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, so he's willing to sell it for $900. The old man laughs and throws down $400. The seller fights for $600, but the old man says that there's no point in selling it if he can't make a profit. The seller gives in and pays $400. The old man wins again, but even the biggest deals come with problems. Some days, the pawn shop feels more like an art gallery, with sellers showing off their so-called masterpieces. One guy walks in with a Picasso ceramic oas, sure he's sitting on a gold mine. He's had it for over 30 years, waiting for the perfect time to cash in, which he figures is now, when he sets his price at a whopping $335,000. The old man isn't going to take him at his word, so he brings it to the pawn shop. The expert looks at the vase and says it's real, has the right markings and is in perfect condition. That last part is very important because condition can make or break a deal. This vase looks like it was just bought. The old man knows he could sell it for a lot of money, but only if the seller comes down to earth. Sellers might dream of their vases going online for over $60,000, but dreams don't always come true on the ground. It's possible that the item could fetch up to $25,000, which is a lot less than the seller wanted. But the pawn shop world doesn't work on wishful thinking, so when Rick made an offer of $15,000, the seller's face said it all, this was going to be a fight. Now, let's be honest, just because something is listed for a sky-high price doesn't mean that's what it sells for. At the end of the day, What matters is what buyers are willing to pay. That's. The seller wasn't willing to pay $15,000 for it, so the bidding began. The back and forth was heated, and the whole thing felt like a high-stakes poker game. Eventually, $177,000 was paid, and the long-lost bee finally found a new home. But just as things seemed to be calming down, another Picasso piece walked in. Apparently it was Picasso Day at the pawn shop, and this time it was a framed print from the 1950s called Goat Skull on Table. Picasso is probably the most famous and important fine artist in the world. The artist was a genius who created Cubism and abstract expressionism. The seller thought it was worth over $100,000 based on an old appraisal, but real market value is a different matter. When the experts looked at it, they confirmed it was an aqua tint etching, which are fancy words for something that looked like a watercolor but wasn't hand-painted. It had value, but not nearly what the seller thought it was worth. After a quick call, the shop made their final offer, which was $1,000. The seller hesitated but walked away. With cash in hand and another Picasso piece added to the shop's growing collection. And just when you thought the Picasso craze was over, here comes a wild card. 6 Picasso etchings from a rare book collection. The seller was counting on the artist's fame to drive up the price, asking $5,000, but not every piece of art by a famous artist sells for that much. Some sell for millions of dollars, while others barely get a few $100s. Experts confirmed these were real and part of a signed set. The full set was listed in a book called Lisa Strata, which definitely raised its value. If broken up, it might bring even more. Still, Rick wasn't going to settle for $5,000 without a fight. The seller wanted $6,000, and after some smart negotiating, Rick bid $6,000. It was another Picasso set, and the deal went through. But wait, there's more. Just when it looked like the Picasso train had reached its final stop, another seller walked in with what they said was a Picasso print from the 1960s. There was a problem: there was no paperwork. In the world of art, missing paperwork is like a huge red flag. No proof, which means disaster. The shop's art expert took a closer look and found that the piece was real. The paper quality, plate marks, and overall condition all checked out. But there was a catch: Picasso made a lot of these without a signature, so the value dropped dramatically. Is Rick Harrison's downfall his own fault, or is someone destroying him from the inside? Let us know what you think, and don't forget to like and follow for more.